Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. So this podcast is about near-death experiences. For me, I've got a bit of an obsession with them now. You'd think after over 100 episodes that I would be getting a little bit tired of it, but for me, I just love exploring this topic. There's so many different aspects to them. It affects people in so many different ways, changes the way they view God, themselves, impacts their personal faith. It changes what they think happens to them after they die. It just changes their outlook on life and can change the direction of their life. So there's so many different elements to these experiences which are exceptional, and I love to explore them. So hopefully we can stay on this journey together for a lot longer and get to know more about where we've come from through these experiences and become better people at the same time. So today I have got an experience from someone called Susan H. Actually, Susan Harris is her name. She's written a book. This one's called Touched by Eternity. And this experience, which is on the nderf.org website that I'm about to read, must be an excerpt or a summary of what happened to her. So let's get into it. I've had 3 near-death experiences, all precipitated by health conditions. My first NDE occurred on October the 16th, 1998, in Toronto while my doctor was attending to me. My second took place in 2015 while being treated for a pinched nerve, and my third happened at home following dental surgery in 2017. I didn't even know of the term NDE until 2017 when I decided to go public on social media and a friend enlightened me. I will relate the first NDE, only one given the numerous details of the 3. Weight loss, nausea, vomiting had marked the entire first trimester of my pregnancy in 1998. The name of this debilitating morning sickness is hyperemesis gravidarum, but I was sick day and night, and not just mornings. Smell was my worst enemy, and the nausea washed over me from food, cologne, toothpaste, and everyday household products. Taste conspired with smell to whirl my head into dizzy circles. Also, a morsel of toast and milk I attempted were rejected before I could swallow them. The calcium needed for my baby's bones lay in a putrid mess in the little pail next to the bed. Water morphed to pungency that spewed from my mouth as soon as the glass was set to my lips. Popsicles relieved me for an hour before the biliousness would rise again. Nothing stayed in my stomach, and I dry heaved every few minutes. All my senses were against me. The mere viewing of food advertisements stirred queasiness, so the television remained a dark screen. A kind friend used to prepare meals for my husband since cooking and microwaving was strictly banned at our house. But when the phone would ring for him to pick up the food, like Pavlov's dogs, would salivate at the ring of the bell. I began to nauseate at the ring. Sounds were greatly amplified, and I could not listen to music or the Bible on tape. Reading was out of the question. The wasp from the kitchen of the other residents in the building where we lived sent me into revulsion. and no amount of sealing of the windows could prevent the abhorrence from sweeping in. Daily I threw up, 5 times, 15 times, 20 times. So violent was the retching that I expected to see the baby spew in the pail. October the 16th dawned, a crisp Friday in autumn, with the sun yellow in the sky. I was 13 weeks pregnant and weighed a sorry 95 pounds. You are dehydrated. You are not well. Doctor, Dr. Im exclaimed as soon as he looked at me. Eyeliner and mascara could not hide illness from his expert gaze, filled with concern. You need home care, the doctor said, and his tone was urgent, and he picked up the phone to arrange for a nurse to come to our address. He explained the reason for his call and was placed on hold. Suddenly, the call was disconnected. He redialed, outlining the immediacy of the situation. One more time, the call was dropped, perhaps in an attempt to transfer it. I felt valued by his empathy and determination to get a nurse to attend to me at home. Third time this wonderful doctor dialed the number, but I knew if he got a hold of the department, but I never knew if he got a hold of the department, for at that moment I slumped forward on his desk. Simultaneous with my memory of slumping on the doctor's desk is one where I'm walking uphill on soft green grass. The place is bright, as if the sun is full out and it is daytime. On my right is a huge person striding, and I walk in his shadow. The shadow encompasses me in a circle, similar to the way a midday sun casts a shadow around a person, as opposed to the evening when the shadows are long. I feel as if I know him. I know where I am. I am in heaven in the shadow of the Almighty, as spoken of in Psalm 91. I do not see him, but I know he is there. It's as if knowledge enters my mind at that particular time I need to know something. We do not speak, but we seem to know each other's thoughts. Our communication is a wordless language through the transfer of thoughts. We walk unhurriedly. There is no haste and no strain of climbing uphill. It is as effortless as walking on level ground. There is no path, yet we walk in the same direction, purposeful of where we are going on the wide open grassy space. The green is a shade that I have not seen before, and as such it is indescribable. The words do not exist in my vocabulary. The hue is more yellow than I've seen on earth. I walk at my usual pace, taking small steps, and he keeps up with me. One would expect that a person as large as he would have a big stride, but although he is much bigger than I am and towers at my side, our paces never fall out of sync, nor does it appear that he is slowing down. We are in a large meadow, and the expanse before me is vast. Far ahead of us are trees, vibrant, healthy green trees, but not deep, dark forest green as on earth. The colours in heaven do not exist on earth, and hence I cannot assign them a name. The colours are brighter and happier and rapturous to my eyes. Above us all is cloudless, clear. It reminds me of a tropical day in the Caribbean, except there is no heat to drain my energy. There is no wind either. The temperature is ideal. Everything in this unimaginable, indescribable place is perfect. The person walking with me leads me to the top of the hill and I sit down. His shadow still hovers over me, as if shading me even though there is no heat to burn my skin. A most indescribable sense of peace permeates this heaven-osphere, as I call the atmosphere of heaven. Words may yet have to be created to describe heaven. My words cannot do justice, as they fall short of what heaven is. Parts of speech fail to deliver the emotions of being in heaven, because heaven is an experiential concept rather than a theoretical one. A picture might convey details, but I have no pictures to show, as the pictures are embedded in my consciousness. Peace fills me and pulsates through my being, settled in every hidden part of my insides, into my cells, bones, nerves, and fibers. The entire meadow is laden with peace. Such astounding peace can only be felt, not described. Even if one thinks of his or her most relaxed and refreshing moment on earth, it would be but an imitation in heaven's peace. Where I am, there is no sense of time. Time as we know it on earth is linear and irreversible. Not in heaven. There is no dimension to time. All is still. I inhale deeply. I am contented and satisfied in ways I could never have imagined as I absorb this quietude. I have no pain. I have no worries. I do not remember any sorrow. There is no hint of things negative. I gaze around. Down the hill, the meadows taper out to flat land. A lone tree with a giant trunk stands in the middle of even ground. The tree is huge, with branches at the very top that spread out like gigantic living umbrella. I recall pictures of similar ones I've seen in the African savannah, or the real ones in the bush gardens in Florida. Under the tree, a group of children are playing a game. They are far from me, yet I can see the details. I have perfect vision in heaven, and there's no need for the contact lens I wear on my left eye. Interestingly, I do not squint in the light, as I do on earth with the astigmatism in my eye. I am able to see things up close as well as I can see them as I can see them far away. There are about a dozen children ranging in age from perhaps 2 to 8, and 3 teens are interspersed among them. The scene reminds me of a babysitting one where the older children take the younger ones out to play. The children are dressed with short-sleeved clothing, and they all wear socks and shoes. The little boys wear shorts into which their shirts are neatly tucked, and the girls are in dresses of white or soft pastel shades of blue, yellow, pink, or green. The children are holding hands and moving in a circle in a counterclockwise direction. Again, they have no sense of rush, no push, only calm and gentleness. From my spot on the hill, I am drawn to a little girl wearing a pale green dress with puff sleeves, white socks, and black shoes. She may be taller, 2 years old, or a smaller 4-year-old. I cannot see her face as her back is to me. On her right side is a little blonde boy with white shirt tucked into his khaki pants, who also looks about 4 years old. On her left is a little girl in pink about the same age. To the left of the girl in pink is a young teen dressed in a blue skirt that falls below her knee in midi style, paired with a white blouse. She wears flat shoes but no socks. On the opposite end of the circle is a little girl in buttery yellow. The sight is precious, and I let out a sigh of contentment. It is beautiful and perfect. No one shouts, there is no noise, only quiet. No one pushes or is impatient. Unlike the typical scenes at playgrounds on earth, the children are in sync with each other. Suddenly, the little girl in the green dress stumbles and falls. Her hand is still held by the blonde boy and the girl in pink on either side of her. Everyone pauses. The circle stops. No one speaks, but each knows what to do. The teen extricates her hands from the one she had been holding and joins their hands together so the circle is unbroken. She goes over to the fallen child and ever so gently picks her up. It is played out in slow motion. There is no sense of hurry in this wonderful place, but time seems to slow even more as she picks up the child. I am spellbound by all the little ones, fascinated at how mature they are, but my interest in the little girl who fell is more acute than for the rest. I feel I know this child. The little girl is upright and again stable on her feet. The teen goes back to her spot and the children continue to move counterclockwise in the circle. I keep drawing in deep breaths and exhaling with them with sighs of satisfaction, as if I can't get enough of this peaceful stillness. This beauty, these colours, the children. I, who had been alone, imprisoned on a sickbed with unquenchable thirst, find my release in the tranquility and calm. Here I am with children and Almighty God in this perfect, flawless meadow, my mind relaxed and my body at rest. Unfettered, with no care, no pain, no worries, only goodness and perfection and health. This is all I desire. This is where I belong. This is what I had believed and lived for, and this is where I want to be. The thoughts come that this is natural for heaven to be filled with this peace, because Jesus is peace and he is there. Peace as we know it on earth is a noun, but heaven, peace in heaven is a person, and according to Isaiah 9:6 has a name, Prince of Peace. He envelopes me so I am inundated, filled and overflowing with him. It's the difference between what is felt on earth and in heaven. If Jesus brings snatches of his peace to me on earth, they are but a taste of what I'll have in heaven. Up to now, there has been no real verbal communication in this meadow, no human voice, but without warning, I become aware that I am talking. I don't want to go back, I protest aloud. I want to stay here. I am being pulled away, but this unbelievable peacefulness, my 95-pound body ached for and finally found is mine, and no one is going to take it away. I don't want to go back, I beg again, but it is too late. You must come back. The voice is soft, but carries a finality I cannot argue with. The words hold complete authority. I have no choice. Faster than any speed I could imagine, I find myself receding from heaven, sucked back to somewhere. Someone is at my side, but not as close as when we walked in the meadow. The way back looks like a dark road spiraling as in a drawing, widest at the heaven top, but fishtailing to thin nothingness as at the other end. I feel as if I am flying backwards, my face towards heaven, my feet pointing in the direction I am travelling. I am in a horizontal position, whizzing through the air at this speed, and I cannot mention, but which feels like the twinkling of an eye, as I described in Corinthians 15:52. Still mumbling that I wanted to stay, I opened my eyes to see my doctor and my husband's faces hovering above mine. I was lying on a narrow bed in an examination room at the clinic, whereas when I left Earth, I had been sitting on a chair in my doctor's office. Which one of them had requested that I come back? I remember asking my husband about the incident the same day, but did not record the details. I've regretted that I didn't pay attention to this unusual occurrence. He says I was out, unconscious for maybe 3 minutes. When I collapsed on the desk, he lifted me and took me to an examination room as directed by my doctor. He placed me on the bed and the doctor adjusted it so my head was down and my feet were up. My husband described how the doctor kept me this way for about a minute and then adjusted the bed to bring my head up again. Doctor My doctor gave me something to drink. My husband recalls their communication, how the doctor said more than once, "We are losing her," because he couldn't find my pulse and heartbeat. My doctor explained that when I regained consciousness, I appeared to be in a daze and said to them, I was in heaven. I remember murmuring those words too. He said that they both had listened to neither, but neither asked me any questions. My husband said he had been praying from the moment I collapsed, and all the time I was in heaven. I know his faith, and I know his prayer is the reason I was brought back to earth. Such is the power of prayer. God hears and answers. That day in 1998, I was healed of my morning sickness and started to eat again and gain weight after visiting heaven. I never threw up again for the rest of my pregnancy. I also came back with a second miraculous healings. I have medical records to prove my healings. I had not been pronounced clinically dead. What happened to me was what I would learn 19 years later is termed a near-death experience, as described in the book, A Visit to the Afterlife. My first out-of-body experience. After my third NDE in 2017, I was consumed afresh with the details of my first visit to heaven. I wanted to tell my story accurately, so I asked my husband which of the men had called me back. He said he could not remember, but I pressed him, whereas 19 years had elapsed and his memory had dimmed. My memory of heaven's meadow remained stark and fresh. Throughout the years, I had simply assumed it was he who had spoken. He was my husband, so it seemed natural that he would ask me to come back. But it was necessary for writing my book. Was it you? I prodded. I really can't remember all the details, he repeated. I begged. Try to remember, you must remember. I have to know who spoke, so I can put it in the book. The lion was silent before he replied. I was praying and the doctor was doing the medical procedures. His slow response was indicative of pondering as he travelled back in time in his mind. I don't think he talked to you because you were out. We talked to each other, but not to you. Then he added, sounding suddenly sure, we did not talk to you. Who then had spoken to me? The hairs on my entire body rose. I know who spoke, and if he told me to come back, it means he was present in the place I was coming back to. Could that be the reason I have had so many supernatural experiences since? Did God plan all along to partner with me and show me things for a greater cause? I left my body sag on the love seat. Until that day, I had lived in a state of relative oblivion to the implications of being in heaven and hearing God speak directly to me in eternity. Hearing him there is different than the Holy Spirit speaking to me on earth. Hearing him there is different than the Holy Spirit speaking to me on earth. I heard the voice that said, "Let there be," and the stars fixed themselves in the galaxy. Waters flooded the oceans and the animals appeared. Though the tone of the injunction appeared to give to me to come back was soft, I had the impressions it echoed throughout eternity. As I pondered this in August 2017, I felt the Holy Spirit impressing on me. You have been in the shadow of the Almighty. You have been in the secret place. You have been with the Prince of Peace. Peace surrounded you. He filled you inside and settled within you. You are a carrier of peace. Go now and carry peace. I had buried the responsibilities entrusted through visits, visions, and encounters with angels. I had been schooled by God himself, and I had remained silent. I will be silent no more, Lord, I vowed. I meant it, and he knew I meant it too. I had already begun to proclaim my supernatural realities publicly on social media in 2018. Then I began to host a show called Eternity on Cable Vision. And in 2019, I released my book, Touched by Eternity, a true story of heaven, healing, and angels. I had been told that I was having a boy child. Upon birth, the baby was a girl. She was showered with countless gifts from friends and family, including a little pastel green dress with short puff sleeves and a white collar embroidered with the same green. That day in heaven on October 16th, 1998, a dozen little ones had been playing under the tree and moving in a circle. A girl in a pastel green dress had stumbled and fallen and was picked up and re-established in the game. I was fascinated by her, more acutely interested in her than the rest. I had felt as if I knew this child, that we had a connection. I had been framing photos when suddenly a holy awe ran up my body and chills swept over me, as if someone had brushed cobwebs from my face. I knew who the child was. The little girl was my child, the one I carried in my womb when I collapsed in the doctor's office. The dress the little girl in heaven had been wearing is the same design and color as the gift my daughter received and was wearing in the photo I was framing. God had allowed me to see her as he saw her. Her falling down was symbolic of the precarious position she was in, given my condition, but she did not remain fallen. Her being picked up was symbolic of restoration and healing. Father God took me home and showed me how this infant child whose life depended on mine would make it. I would become well and we would live. Unborn children are in heaven. I saw my child and others and my personal future in heaven. I believe that we are all in heaven before we ascend to this earth to parents, but we make a choice whether we will go back to spend eternity with God. I've dedicated my life to leading as many to God by asking, where will you spend eternity? Thank you for reading my story. And that's the end of Susan's experience. So for me, that didn't profoundly touch me. Uh, I, as I read it, there were elements that I could see reflected in other experiences, such as the miraculous health changes when she recovers, the timelessness she experienced, the peace she experienced. And this experience was all within a kind of Christian Bible type nutshell. It was very very slanted towards that philosophy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just for me. I don't have kids. I I I am drawn to certain aspects of Christianity, but I don't see it as the only path to God, and so I guess that's why it wasn't resonating with me on a personal level. But at the end of the day, this podcast isn't about me and what what I like. It's about what you you out there can relate to, and hopefully this experience brings you the profoundness it lacked in me. But anyway, let's go through it again. So this lady, she's pregnant. She's getting some pretty severe morning sickness, and she is got her doctor there and her husband, and they're very worried. She's not well, and they tried to get her to lie down, and as this happens, this is when she jumps into another dimension. In her case, there's no graphic transformation here. It's like 1 minute she's in this dimension, in our physical realm where we all are now, and the next she is at the click of her fingers in a heaven type dimension. I don't know why some people go through a tunnel and take this long journey, it seems, to find the light. Like some will be in a massive void and see a pinprick of light in the distance, and it seems to take eternity for that light to get to them, and then they hook up, and it's all peace and love. And other times they go through this tunnel to find other beings or other loved ones that they've lost, and they use this tunnel as a way to get to this other destination. So from all of the experience I've read and listened to, this just doesn't make sense. It's strange because there's no such thing as time or space really in this other dimension. So the fact that a person in this physical realm has to go from one place to the next to get to this other dimension is a little bit weird, because this other dimension, we are obviously in that right now. It's just somehow manipulated to feel like we are in a different place, and this physical realm is separate from this other dimension. But if you think about it, this other spiritual dimension is right there in front of our face right now. It's doesn't need a tunnel or some kind of it's right there. We don't need to get from A to B. It's right there now. It's in front of us. It's within us. It's not a separate place. So why people go through tunnels, and sometimes they go through warp speeds and all this thing to get to this other place, it doesn't make sense to me. I've had a couple of sensations, in like experiences in my own life where I it wasn't an NDE. I was just I was just walking one day. I was just walking down the park, and suddenly it was like I was in another dimension. It's really hard to explain, and it didn't last long. It was at this particular time, it was just 20 or 30 seconds, and it was like the physical reality just melted away, and I was just somewhere else. And there was no reason for this to happen. I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't in a manic state or crazy, I guess, for lack of a better term. It was just one minute I was here, the next minute I wasn't, and then I was like back to this physical realm, and I guess it was similar to what some people describe as an out-of-body experience. So in this case, she is about to die, and she's on the doctor's couch, and then the next minute she is walking uphill on this soft green grass, and the place is incredibly lit up. It's bright as, and for me, for someone who is a little bit, I don't know if allergic's the right word, but a little bit, well, I put it this way: I prefer a dark, cloudy, rainy day to a bright, sunny, warm day. That's just, I don't know if it's the way my physical body is formed. Like, I just don't like the bright light. I have to squint. I get a little bit of hay fever. I sneeze if the sun's too bright. It doesn't gel with me. So for this lady, I guess it's another reason I kind of didn't quite gel with this experience. She's in this incredibly, so she's on the doctor's couch, and now boom, all of a sudden she's walking up this hill, and there's green grass everywhere and sunshine, and she's just gone to another dimension, and she doesn't really explain that journey or how it happened. She's just click 1 minute here, 1 minute there. And she says that there's a huge person that is walking to her right, and she is walking in his shadow. So I don't know much about Psalms or Bible verses, but this is what she says is Psalm 91. I don't know if any of you out there are familiar with what that one is, but it says something along the lines of I am in heaven, I am in the shadow of the Almighty. So I guess this person walking to her right is the Almighty. It's God. It's this divine presence that we all have heard about, and she is in the presence of this entity. She says she doesn't see him, but knows he is there, and this is another part. This bit she says next that you see in most experiences. There's no communication. It's just a transfer of thoughts. Words aren't spoken, and she all of a sudden has this wisdom, this knowledge, this all-knowing enter her mind, and she seems like she's getting a bit of a download, and all questions are answered without her really even having to think of asking them. So she continues to walk along, and they're walking up this hill, but it's pretty effortless, as though they're walking along a flat path. Um, and again, like there's another similarity here. She says the words don't do it justice to what she's seeing and experiencing. There's no human words in the English language, or probably any language for that matter, to actually describe the dimension she is in, and that makes complete sense. Like the words that we have evolved to the point of using here are only really useful for this physical realm, and once you leave this dimension, well, no need to actually talk. There's going to be all sorts of discrepancies in terms of or insufficiencies of our language to explain or describe exactly what this other realm is like. So basically, the big chunk of this experience is her describing in a fair bit of detail exactly what this heaven-like dimension is like. So she says there's trees, they're vibrant, they're healthy, they're not as deep green as the ones we see on Earth. The colors are brighter and happier, and they're colors there that we don't see on Earth. Again, another part of this experience which is reflected in many others. And the person walking her then takes her to the top of the hill and sits her down. And this is where peace starts to really permeate her entire being. She feels settled. It's like every cell in her body is just totally at peace. It's removed of all negativity. She has no pain, no worries, and she's just absorbing this moment and just pretty much sounds like in bliss. And then she has a look around at her surroundings, and she sees a large tree with looks like a bit of an umbrella, and it's similar to the pictures of ones she's seen in the African savannah. And down below this tree, there's children who are playing a game. And this she goes into a fair bit of detail of what they were actually wearing. I won't go through that again. If that kind of thing interests you, you can go back and listen to this again, or have a read yourself. The interesting bit about this is that the people she's seeing, the little kids she's seeing, turn out to be the people that one of them turns out to be the daughter that she has later on in life, and she is quite amazed to find this out. He then goes into a bit of detail as to what this peace she was experiencing actually felt like. And she says that the peace that we feel on earth is like a noun, but in heaven it is a person, she says. So according to Isaiah 9:6, this peace has a name, and this name is the Prince of Peace. And this peace envelopes her, so she feels inundated, filled, and overflowing with peace. It's the difference between how we describe peace on earth and how it is in heaven. But so for me, that personally just is similar to what a lot of near-death experiences explain. Like a lot of experiences will tell you that they feel this love, this joy, this calmness that can't really be put into words. And here, I think what she's doing is using words like Jesus and Prince of Peace as a way of describing this feeling, because us here on earth cannot really relate to what she is experiencing, because it is something that is in this other dimension that needs to be experienced to actually be understood and know what she is talking about. And I guess for us in this physical realm, using biblical references and Jesus and the word Prince of Peace is a bit of a pointer as to what it was actually like. But these words, I think, they're just words, and it's her personal conditioning and religious beliefs that have been placed here as a way of her understanding and describing exactly what has happened. But for those of you who aren't Christian or don't really have any link to or connection to the Bible, you can switch those words around, I guess, and just use love or joy instead of Jesus, if that's not what you believe. But yeah, it's interesting because Jesus, some people say Jesus was a real figure, and others say Jesus is just a collection of spiritual values that have accumulated over time and have become the myth or religious figure that a lot of people see and believe in today. I personally don't know which it is. I don't know if Jesus was real or is a combination of various people that have been put together to form this person we in today's times know as Jesus. At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. I mean, unless you have Jesus in a big part of your life, then you would obviously be quite strongly associated to him and his story in the Bible. But for those who don't and haven't got that connection, it doesn't really matter. It's what you are is what I think is you are this consciousness that is a fragmentation of God that is currently experiencing your life as a human, and whether or not there's a Jesus or any other religious figures, it's irrelevant, because you can find that treasure within yourself without having to be told how to do it by anyone. It's there within you, and it's great if you can get some people or in your life or teachings that kind of guide you towards understanding what that consciousness is within you. But it's not necessary, and I just see it in myself every now and then, but it's a rare thing, and I wish I had a permanent connection to the soul, but it's a hard thing to get in touch with or understand, because I mean, at the end of the day, does anyone really know what a soul even is? Is it is it like a spirit? Is it like a collection of thoughts? Is it something that can see and travel? Is it something that doesn't experience time, or does? Is it, you know what? I'd love someone just to define for me what a soul actually is. And I think the problem there is that the soul is a fragmentation of God, and God is obviously infinite and so many different things that it's impossible for us to really define it or label it, because yeah, it's just one of those things that are beyond our grasp in the physical realm, and these little human minds we've got that are able to actually describe what God is. And if the soul is a fragmentation of God, which is what I believe it is, it's going to be difficult to define a soul, because yeah, it's the same thing as God, really, and that is indescribable. So she goes on to say this experience then becomes a little bit different in the sense that she starts to receive some communication, and it's not like a human voice communication. It's just well, it's she says there's been no verbal communication, and then she says she does hear this voice, because at the start she was getting these thoughts, sort of telepathy going on. At this point of the experience, there's some human type elements of communication that start to infiltrate this experience, and they're saying, you must come back. Basically, she's not sure who's saying this, but whoever is saying it with a great deal of calmness but authority, and she respects this voice, but she doesn't agree with what it's saying, because she's in this, you know, she remembers the body she is in this realm, and it's a 95-pound body, which is very sick and pregnant, and compared to where she is now, which is in a place of peace and calm and beautiful scenery all around her, children playing, hilly green fields. It's a place she wants to stay, and she doesn't want to go back. So here's another element of this experience that is very transferable to other near-death experiences: the reluctance to want to leave this dimension and come back to good old planet Earth. But and she doesn't actually agree, but eventually she just feels herself begin to fall back, and she says, faster than any speed I could imagine, I find myself receding from heaven, sucked back to somewhere. Someone is at my side, but not as when we walked in the meadow. The way back looks like a dark road spiraling in a drawing, widest at the heaven top. So she is spiraling back to Earth, and she says the presence that's with her is no longer the divine or godlike figure that was with her in this heaven-like realm, but more like, I guess, a guide that's with her now and accompanying her back to Earth. And they're just whizzing through the air, and this is a little bit more like near-death experiences at the start, where they usually go into a tunnel or something of the sort. In her case, she is transferring her being from this heaven-like dimension to the physical one, and in this case there is a bit of a journey to get there, which kind of runs counter to how this whole experience started, in that 1 minute she was in a body, and then the next she was in a heaven-like realm at the start. Whereas coming back, it's a little bit of a journey. Why that is, I don't know. Is it to give the person having an experience a bit of a a recognition in their own minds that they're moving from one place to the next. But if that was so, why didn't that happen at the start of the experience as well? I, I, a lot of these experiences have common elements, but sometimes things like that are just too hard to understand, and there seems to be uh, a lack of common sense or predictability into how certain aspects will play out. But yeah, so then she walks up, she sees the doctor, and she's kind of curious. Like she realizes that something pretty amazing's happened to her, and she's wondering. She's saying, who to her husband, who was the one who made me leave this place? I didn't want to leave this dimension. Was it you that kept telling me to come back? And he's like, no, no, no. I was just talking to the doctor. And I was praying for you, but I never actually said to you, come back to me now, Susan. Come back to house. And then the penny sort of dropped that it was probably God or a guide or someone like that that was actually telling her she needed to leave that dimension and come back to planet Earth. And then, like a lot of these experiences, she feels very compelled to share it. It takes her, in this case, a few years to get, I don't know, the guts up or the courage or the wisdom to. She has to go through a couple more experiences to actually start sharing what happened to her. She says in 2018 she started hosting a show on cable TV called Eternity, and then a year later she releases a book called Touched by Eternity, a true story of heaven, healing, and angels. Um, Yeah, so she then wraps it up by explaining that the girl she saw in her experience within heaven was actually is it uh, was actually the daughter she gives birth to later in life. So yeah, there's a very prophetic nature to what she experiences, and yeah, it's quite an interesting little experience there. Like I said, it wasn't one that I could deeply connect with because there was elements of Christianity and children within that story that I haven't really, like, I don't have kids and I've never had a strong connection to Christianity. There's elements of it now that I can really relate to, and I'll see the odd Bible verse here and there, and I can kind of understand what they mean these days. Whereas before it was, I thought it was a bit of a fairy tale and wondered what it was all about. If I gave the Bible another read, I'm sure I would. Well, not another read. If I gave the Bible a read, I probably would pick up a fair bit. But I'll get to that one day if I feel I need to. At the moment, I think I get all the spiritual wisdom and connection I need through these experiences, and just my day-to-day life is filled with little mystical and indescribable connections to the divine, and I don't feel I need that kind of teaching from an old book to reach that state. And when I do see segments of this Bible, like of the Bible here and there, I kind of think that they're just, explaining what was happening to them back in their day, and it was similar to what we're exactly doing now. We're just reading about people's experiences with the divine, and they seem very similar in some ways to what people are experiencing on a daily basis on Earth today, and it shows you the consistency of the love message that comes through and has been coming through for a long time. And yeah, it kind of makes me sad when I think of all of the humans that have come before us and the lives they've lived and the struggles they've gone through, and um, most of them probably, had no idea of what this spiritual intervention was, and the message would have been so difficult to spread compared to what it's like today with the internet and the access to information we have all the time. But having said that, the divine speaks to us all, and some of us are able to tap into it and understand that communication, and others not so much. So it's obviously been happening since humans were humans, and I just hope that you out there are able to get that connection yourself. And if you need pointers or guidance or teaching to get there, or to understand exactly what is going on with you when certain experiences might start happening, like a near death or an out of body that you can't really understand, hopefully this information that we talk about on a weekly basis is able to give you a little bit more of a understanding as to what is actually happening in your life. But one thing I will add about this experience is this kind of concept of duality. I think that's the word, where there's us and then there's a separate divine figure, which kind of is a very Christian type way of looking at our relationship to God and the universe, whereas other experiences will describe this oneness, that there is no separation between us and God, that we are always one, we are always connected. And and when I start to think about that too much, I get a little bit confused, like I've said on multiple episodes before, like what is the nature of the soul? Is it an individual entity that makes its own path in the universe, or is it this connection to this oneness that it doesn't have any individual nature at all. It is just a fragment of God, and it's like a drop in the ocean that goes back into this big ocean once the human form we are all in dies, and then it becomes the whole again. So for me, it's hard to understand which one it is. Is it a soul, an individual creation? Is God a combination of infinite fragments of consciousness, or is there some part of the divine that is like a big chunk, and we split off from it in little souls and go on our little adventures and can somehow return to that oneness at some point? I don't think I explained myself very well there, but there definitely appears to be a duality or a separation from this story's point of view. But is the soul a unique piece of God, or is it God? Really, that's the question. And what is that difference, if there is one? But thank you for listening to me. I hope you got more out of this experience than I did. I'm grateful for Susan sharing it, though, and giving us something to talk about and think about for the last 60 minutes. And I just most importantly want you to have gotten something out of it. So thank you for listening. I love you all, and I will talk to you next week.